Is this recording? Yes. I have quite a lot of things to talk about. Yesterday, I was on Instagram and I noticed how dark like every single clip was. It was just violence, muggings, attempted kidnaps, even smaller things like a guy just grabbing some lady's bags and then trying to get off the train as the doors close. I mean, you might say that that's not as bad as a stabbing, but it is bad because it's something that could happen to any single person. Anyone that has a bag that's standing on a train, could have someone just grab them as the doors are closing, and that's it. What can you do? I saw another clip of that yesterday where some person had an older person had like a big shopping bag full of stuff, and he just took it off the train as the doors were closing, and I think the guy, though I don't really know because they look like we missed the first 10 seconds, but it's one of the it was clear that there was some sort of fuffle going on, and it looked like the older person, the migrant, was just stealing bags off people, and there was a kerfuffle of trying to get it back, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, it's bad. It's actual bad. Like I can kind of, if you're a person working in a migrant hotel and you see that lady who apparently walked home and then got stabbed with a screwdriver by one of the hotel migrant people, one of the migrants in there, a lot of people are going to see that and think, I don't want to work in a migrant hotel. Why? Because I will be working with lots of dangerous people and this could happen to me. And well, if you start doing that, you're not even going to get any employees to want to work in these hotels. So these hotels are going to have to shut down. Why? Because you can't get employees to like these people enough to want to stay in these hotels, or maybe it's just a scam. Maybe this is literally just set up by the government or by people to try and convince people that these migrant hotels are not good. If something like that happens, what is the outcome? What is the outcome that's going to happen to it? Well, a lot of people are going to think, well, I don't want to work in a migrant hotel. I don't want to be putting myself at risk. Being in a prison system is one thing because, okay, you're aware that the prisoners are dangerous, but you're also aware that they're behind bars, and therefore once you leave, they ain't going to follow you home. But if a refugee hotel is literally just housing, people that are escaping from war when really they're actually the ones who are causing war, and they just given up trying to steal off poor people and they've decided to come to a richer country to steal off richer people, that makes sense. Now, if this is what these migrant hotels are, basically prison systems only without the prison, no one's going to want to work in these systems, and then these systems are going to have to be forced to be closed down. Is it actually dealing with the problem with it though? Because even if these hotels weren't set up, that doesn't mean that these people won't be walking the streets willing to attack anyone they can because they feel they can. I saw one clip, I think it wasn't in England, but it was somewhere like Denmark or Belgium or something, but the person tried to kidnap someone just randomly, and there was a bus that passed, and they stopped and they freed her, but then he tried to kidnap someone on the bus, and then he walked off, and then he tried to do it to a third person down the street, and I think they reported him to the police, and maybe they caught him. I don't know how it ended, but if you've got people as crazy as that have absolutely no fear of the public, no fear of, my hair looks bad again. If you have people who are just crazy as that, like have no fear of the public or no fear of the police or no fear of anything because they think they can just do whatever they want, this is a kind of animal mentality. But if you've got more and more of these people coming in, it kind of makes smaller crimes look like nothing. Like we can't arrest the people who are doing the smaller crimes. Why? Because there are worse crimes that really are more severe. And I don't know what's going on with Instagram, but I know that it's important that people see this. If this is the truth about what is happening, then people need to see it. But I understand, because it's having some sort of ripple side effect. If you see a woman just walk home from a migrant hotel and get stabbed, or if you know that this has happened and you apparently there's clips, but we can't show it because they're too graphic, of the actual stabbing. If you see that and it's happening, it's going to have a ripple effect. So maybe these things aren't even true. That's the thing. I have no trust in the media. I have no trust in the public. I have no trust in the government. I have no trust in anyone. Therefore, I don't necessarily know that these are even the truth, because maybe the whole point of it is to try and stir up trouble, stir up anger against these migrants, make people think that we are at war. Hence, if we do start turning against the migrants, we have justified reasons. Maybe the justified reasons aren't even reasons; they're just fabricated lies. That's the kind of state that we're in right now. But I know that it is important to see things like this. Why? Because if I'm standing on a train with some bags, I want to make sure that I'm not too close to the door, just in case anyone grabs it as the doors are closing, because I don't want to lose my shopping bags. On one hand, you don't want to see it, but on the other hand, you need to be aware. If you're standing on a train line and there's someone that's just going down, punching every single person or every single woman that he walks past, I want to be aware of this. Hence, I'm not going to be standing on a train. I'm not going to be standing on a train track any longer with headphones, in case there's some moron that's coming down just to punch everyone. If that's what's going to be happening, then I'm going to be far more aware of my situation. So on one hand, it's good that these things are being shown, because people are going to be like, I don't want that to happen to me. I'm going to be more careful. I'm not going to walk around at night. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. It's going to encourage more people to be inside their homes and not leave. But I don't know. I mean, if that's going to keep people safer, then on one hand, it's a good thing that they're being shown. But I used to think that all the posts were being controlled just by random. Like, if you're on Instagram, you follow a bunch of people, and the sort of algorithm picks up on all the things that they follow or they like or they post, and then it posts on your homepage. So if you have, if you only had comedians on your Instagram page, and if the people that you've basically signed on to are all the people that are just focusing on positive stuff, I was convinced that, you would only get the positive stuff. But yeah, now that I've added some negative people, I'm wondering if that's the reason why, all these negative posts are coming up, because I've just kind of, I mean, I'm still logged on to all the singers and celebrities that I was logged on to before, but I've added quite a few more people who seem to be more focused on the destruction that's happening in London. It's bothering me with hair. Let's put that back. But yeah, is that the reason? I don't know. Is that, I don't know. I know that I saw the one clip though, because there was one time where I saw loads and loads of clips, and then I saw someone else had made like they'd made like a compilation of lots of different clips, and it was strange because every single one of those clips, except for like two, were things that I'd seen in that same week. Now, if whatever I have been finding has been found because of just random people that I've added and them liking this, I'm wondering, is that the truth, or has Instagram, like Mark Zuckerberg and people who are controlling the Instagram or controlling the algorithm, controlling what people are seeing, are they controlling what's being seen? And that's the reason why that they saw the same clips that I'm seeing, because I have spoken to a few people, my auntie, I guess, and there was that autistic person, but I noticed whenever I was talking to him about posts, he would see the same sort of things that I would be seeing. If I would talk about a post, he would almost know what I was talking about, which I found was kind of interesting, because it was like, but I thought the post that I was seeing was just sort of kind of like randomly given to me. So there's millions of posts out there, and I just happened to come on a few. But the fact that he was seeing the same kind of posts, and my auntie was seeing the same kind of posts, even though she's in Australia, it's making me think, are these really just random posts that I'm seeing, or is it being controlled by the people who are controlling these websites? I don't know. But if we all see, if everyone is seeing the posts that I'm seeing, then they're going to know that a problem is happening. But what are the Islamic people saying? Well, are the Islamic people even on these things? I know a lot of people would say, oh, this is too negative for me, so I'm not going to watch it any longer. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking, like I shouldn't be watching this stuff. But at the same time, I'm almost like, if the Earth is just being destroyed, I want to know that it's being destroyed, so I can actually like try and so I can just be aware of what might happen to me. If this one person was going to be grabbed, looked like she was going to be grabbed by someone, and then she started going closer to the car, and it turned out that person actually was originally in that car, so he would have got out the car to try and first grab her. So she was kind of walking away from this person who was acting suspicious around her, and walking towards the car, when in reality the car was actually the same group of people, and so that alone, it's a small thing, but it kind of makes me think, wow, you can't trust the people on the streets, or you can't trust the people in the cars. And another one was trying to stop a car and just, I don't know, aggravate them, and it turned out to be full of gangsters, and they got out and started beating him up and chasing him down the street. And it's just, when you see things like this, you're just like, what the fuck has England turned into? Like, how can it be this bad? Like, obviously, the people who are making these posts so popular are just trying to scare the public. What's that going to do? What's that going to achieve? It's going to achieve fear. And if you're under fear, you will be far more tempted to want to trust the government, because you have no other choice. And that's how desperate people are getting. People are turning. I don't know why there's so much emphasis on becoming, universal credit. There's so much emphasis on trying to get as many people on universal credit as possible. But the thing about universal credit is that the only people who it benefits anyone who's on it, but the only way you can get on it is if you don't own a property. And therefore they've obviously got some sort of system that helps people who don't own a property. Why is there so much demand for people to get onto this? I mean, to me it sounds like communism. It sounds like you're just trying to control people, control the money. You're turning it more and more into a Chinese type of state. And I guess I didn't understand communism before, but I've never been to China. I don't understand like how good or bad. I know there are some very bad people in China, and so maybe the reason why communism exists or is better for China than other countries is because maybe there are some really bad people in the country, and by having a communist regime, you basically have the government that has all the power, all the money, all the control, and they basically give handouts to people they like and people they don't like. This is a bad thing if they're giving the handouts to the wrong people, which is why I do not want communism in England. The problem is, I am looking round at Birmingham and I'm just thinking, do I care if these people are being controlled by the government? Do I care if these people are, it's becoming more and more Islamic, particularly in Birmingham. If you walk around other places, that there are some nice villages around that are definitely not like that, but there are some places that are heavily influenced by just Islam or gangsters, or you've got a sort of Islam versus the gangsters, and the gangsters are just godless people who might claim to worship God, but they don't really know themselves what they worship. And then Islam try to believe that they are worshipping the right God and stuff, so that they try harder to impress God. So in a way that the Islamists are better than some of these gangsters. But yeah, it's just going to cause fighting. It's just going to cause problems. There's going to be people in the crossfire. There's going to be kids that, if some person just randomly pushes someone, that there could be people around, kids around that get knocked over by this as well. It might not be very hugely severe for an adult, but it will be for a 2-year-old that's standing underneath her. That's the sort of thing, that's the sort of videos that I was seeing. And just people having no respect for anyone else, to be on a bus that's driving and end up having a fight, grabbing that guy, the driver of the moving bus, grabbing him out the seat, throwing him on the floor, and then punching him a couple of times whilst the bus is still moving. Like, that's the most ridiculous thing you could do. That's the sort of thing that even a cat would be smarter than that, and know not to do that. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be smarter than that. Maybe that is pretty much the attitude and logic of a cat. But yeah, this is getting really, really out of hand, and maybe I'm just seeing like the worst of it. But at the same time, a lot of people keep focusing on the Rakabula or whatever, that guy who killed 3 kids and stuff, and the Taylor Swift concert, people, or the Ariana Grande concert, people would focus on those 2 things. But I just think that people are focusing on those 2 things, but the problems are everywhere. The problems are just random stabbings, random attacks, random pushing down people downstairs, complete strangers, stabbing each other in the streets. Like what the hell? Like, is this even real? Is this even real? Because it doesn't feel real, because it's just like this is too unbelievable to be real, and therefore I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not real. Maybe people are just trying to install fear into people so that they'd be more tempted to start accepting communism. Communism is where you don't actually have to work. I mean, if you say to the government, I don't have any money, I can't work because I'm depressed, can you give me money? Whether you work or not will depend on whether or not the government say yes or no. If they say no, then you're kind of forced to work, and if they say yes, then you come off it. it is turning into a communist country. I didn't want to sign on to PIP because I wanted to be independent, but I couldn't get a job. I can't work because I don't have the energy or health any longer, and I'm way too depressed. And therefore I have no choice but to turn to the government now. But if the government did turn around and say, no, I'm not going to give you anything, then, you know, it might end up badly for someone. It might end up them on the streets or them turning to crime. And can the government handle it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just want, the exposure of me to happen, and yeah, I come across the angels of the foster parents today. I was thinking about that bunny, that bunny image that I saw yesterday. There was like some cute bunnies that were kind of so small that they were still they still had their eyes closed. They were still babies basically, and then the badger came through. And then the mum sort of scuffled off, and you're kind of waiting, thinking, oh no, the badger's going to come back. The badger could easily eat both the mother and the children. They're all going to be dead. And then this sort of, obviously a male bunny just popped up and they started kissing, which was it's a very cute thing. But, you know, it's reminding me of, like, you know, someone on their own. One parent can't look after a bunch of babies that can't see anything. They're stronger together, and that was quite a strong image. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of like really what I want to do. Tell the world that I am your God. I am Eve reincarnated. I've gone for a second birth. I want to know who the kids are that belong to this new birth. They couldn't see anything in the past. They got everything wrong. You have to accept that was all wrong. And then I have some sort of website where I can get these people to actually sign on and get an identification, tell me that they are on my side, that they believe, they agree. Okay, I'll need to actually do checks to make sure they do actually agree and are not just signing on because they want to insult me. But yeah, and then just go into stages about, you know, well, you can be fostered into another world, you know, I think if people are watching all these videos, they're going to realize that there's some big problems here, and therefore if they do start, they're probably going to, I reckon that if people do start going into the rapture, a smart person's going to think, who is going in the rapture? Because if these people that just stab people in the head with a screwdriver, if they're the ones that are being raptured off to this better place, well, how do we know they're going to a better place? Because they don't deserve to go to a better place. It's not fair that they get to go to a better place, but if they're going, you know, I'm going to see that as a sign that I shouldn't go, because obviously they're just being tricked. And, you know, if people think that people are being tricked, if they are seeing all the terrible things that are happening around Earth, or happening on Earth, and they know that these people are the ones going, you know, they might not say anything because they might be like, you know what, I think this is a trick. I ain't going to go. But I'm glad that they're going. I'm glad that they're leaving. I'm glad that they want a different planet, because this planet will be better off without them, you know. I think if the smart people can see it from that perspective, you know, I think also, okay, you had the divide of the first worlds, the second worlds and the third worlds. I don't really know which ones are which, but you had this divide. And I think if I told people, you know, I want everyone in Gaza to die, you know, I don't think many people, because I don't really know each of the individuals, because I don't know these people personally, and they might say, oh, children, civilians, you know, they're all innocent, you know. I'm thinking about it from a bigger perspective. There's a huge planet full of people. There's way too many people, and you know, if I said something like that, everyone would think that I was a monster. But if a lot of these people had come into our country, or a lot of these people, because we don't know who these people are, but if there are a lot of really dangerous, bad people that are just doing all sorts of mad stuff, you know, people are going to think that, okay, we don't know who's in Gaza. But if they are like these people that are causing problems, then we need to just trust that if they go for a good reason, you know. And I'm not saying that everyone in Gaza is bad, because I don't know, you know, there might be some people in Gaza that are just longing for me to come and fix everything. But if there was a website where anyone in the world can sign on to, if they, you know, wanted to, if they believed in me, if they trusted in me, if they saw truth in me, if they looked at my face, okay, we can probably make myself look a bit better, if they saw pictures of me, would they say yes, that is my God, or would they say no, I don't want to? That's ridiculous. I would want to know what they say, and I will judge them by what they say. And I would be interested if there was like a percentage. How many people. I don't. You could use Gaza as. I don't know if Gaza really has much computer systems right now. They probably don't. But if there were people in certain countries, what's the percentage of people that believe me in England? What is the percentage of people that believe me in America? What's the percentage of people that believe me in India or other places? And I it's like that rabbit in the tunnel that has the babies, and she's just looking after her babies, but her babies are all blind. And I in a way I kind of feel like that, because I'm like, who are my babies? Who are these people? I've got to have kids somewhere. I've got to have spiritual kids around the world, and I don't know who they are, and I want to know who they are. But right now they're just kind of like hiding amongst anywhere, anyone, anywhere. And so yeah, I like the idea of having a website that hopefully can help me identify who these people are around the world, and I could see them as foster kids. But yeah, I know that foster kids could also have an alternative meaning, which is gods in the other world. And by having an angel of the foster kids that prefer another god, I feel like that also plants seeds. So I was thinking maybe I should expose them first, and then 3.5 years later expose the negative name. But maybe they should actually come. Maybe their positive name and the negative name should come at the same time. But maybe their real negative name is actually angels of them, who can trick people into believing in that they can become a kid of another world when really they can't. That might be their true negative name. They might have a positive name and a false negative name, or just two names, should I say? Two positive names, whether they be foster kids of me or foster kids of another god. But the negative name would trick people into thinking that they can become kids of another god. So I think I'd have it like that.